Okay, so let's talk about books. There are really two ways to get to know a book. One gives you a quick answer for right now. The other actually changes how you see the world. And the real secret, the real magic, is figuring out how to make them work together. Let's dive in.
So I want you to do something for me. Right now, think of a book that genuinely rewired your brain. Not one that just taught you a new fact, but one that fundamentally altered your perspective. Got it? Okay, now be honest. Could a quick AI summary have done the same thing? Yeah, I didn't think so. And understanding why is everything.
And that question really gets to the heart of the two ways we engage with knowledge. On one hand, there's dedication. This is where you fully immerse yourself. You follow an author's argument from beginning to end. On the other, you've got on demand, which is all about pulling out a specific fact right when you need it. Now, neither of these is inherently bad, but they produce two totally different states of mind.
To really get a feel for what I mean, let's explore a couple of metaphors that perfectly capture what's going on inside our heads when we read. We're going to look at the idea of being an apprentice versus being a consultant.
Think about it this way. Deep reading is like an apprenticeship. You actually surrender to the author's worldview for a while. You learn to see through their eyes, and by doing that, you gain a whole new mental model for yourself. But querying, asking an AI for a summary, that's like hiring a consultant. You get a perfect, precise answer to your question, which is super useful, but you walk away with just the answer, not the expert's entire framework that allowed them to come up with it in the first place.
And that's because a truly great book isn't just a random collection of ideas. No, it's a masterpiece of architecture. Every single chapter, every paragraph is there for a reason. It's all engineered to support the whole thing. Let me show you what I mean.
So, when you query a book, pull out a quote or read a summary, it's like you're looking at a single, beautiful stone arch from a bridge. It's impressive, it's interesting, but you have absolutely no idea how it works, what it's supporting, or how it fits into the bigger picture.
But when you read the entire book, you suddenly see the whole bridge. You finally understand how all those pieces connect, how the tension and compression work together to create this massive, stable structure that can take you somewhere new. You finally grasp the architect's design.
Let's take a real-world example, like David Deutsch's book, The Beginning of Infinity. The central claim is that human progress can be infinite. Now, if you just read that in a summary, it sounds kind of naive, maybe even reckless, right? But the book's architecture is pure genius. Over hundreds of pages, it anticipates and systematically takes apart every single one of your objections. So by the end, you don't just accept the claim, you actually inhabit the entire system of thought that makes that claim possible.
So, what's the big deal? What happens if we lean too heavily on just one of these approaches? Well, we risk falling into one of two really common intellectual traps. And most of the time, we don't even see it happening.
The first trap is what we can call the fragment collector. This person thrives on summaries, on quotes, on highlights. They have a really impressive collection of interesting facts and little intellectual tools, but they're missing the deep, underlying framework that holds it all together. They've got a pile of bricks, but no blueprint.
For instance, think about the book Atomic Habits. A fragment collector knows all the cool-sounding techniques, like habit stacking, and they can borrow that tool for a specific job. But what they often miss is James Clear's fundamental system, that cue, craving, response, reward loop. So when that one technique inevitably doesn't work in a new situation, they're completely stuck. They have no idea why it failed because they never understood the engine, just one of the parts.
And then on the complete flip side, you've got the second trap, the passive scholar. This person does the hard work. They read deeply, they totally get the architecture, they have that big aha moment, and then the book goes right back on the shelf, never to be opened again. The knowledge is all there, but it's purely theoretical.
This is kind of like having a huge savings account that you never, ever touch. It's incredibly valuable, for sure. It represents a huge investment of your time and energy. But if it just sits there, it's not actually generating any returns in your life. It's a whole lot of potential energy that never becomes kinetic.
So, if going to either extreme is a trap, what's the answer? Well, it's not about picking a side. It's about creating a powerful feedback loop between both methods. It's about moving from just consuming information to actually creating new knowledge.
And it's really a three-step dance. Step 1, you immerse yourself completely. You read the whole book deeply to build that solid foundation, to see the architecture. Then, step 2, you revisit and query. You go back into the book, but this time with a specific problem you're trying to solve. And finally, step 3, you apply and connect. You talk about it, you write about it, you test the ideas out in the real world. You make them yours.
Here's a good way to think about it.
The fragment collector is like a home cook who can follow a recipe perfectly. The passive scholar is like someone who aced culinary school but never actually cooks a meal. The true knowledge creator, though, is the master chef. They have a deep understanding of the principles, and they're in the kitchen every single day applying, improvising, and creating.
So really, this all boils down to 3 types of people. You've got the fragment collector, who just borrows little pieces. You have the passive scholar, who can only parrot the arguments they've read. And then you have the knowledge creator. This is the person who has done the work to understand, to apply, and ultimately to earn the right to build on top of those ideas.
Okay, so this is all interesting, but why does this distinction matter more right now than maybe ever before? The answer is pretty simple. It's because of the world we're living in, the age of AI and instant information.
The really big risk we're facing is becoming a culture that is incredibly, unbelievably efficient at using knowledge that already exists, while slowly but surely losing our ability to generate new, original, deeply structured knowledge. We risk becoming a world of amazing consultants with no architects left to design the buildings.
So what can you do? The good news is it starts with just a little self-awareness. If you're someone who leans towards querying, you love the summaries, the videos, the AI chats, your challenge is simple. Commit to reading one foundational book in your field this month, cover to cover. And if you're more of a passive scholar, your job is to pick one book you've already finished and, this week, actively use one idea from it. Talk about it, write about it, try it out, bring it to life.
Look, at the end of the day, this isn't about deep reading versus quick queries. It's not a competition. The goal is to understand that the real power, the true breakthrough, happens when one starts feeding the other. Deep reading builds the foundation that makes your questions smarter, and asking good questions makes that deep knowledge actually useful.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. In a world where answers are becoming cheaper and easier to get every single day, are we paying enough attention to this shift? Or are we accidentally trading away our ability to build the great intellectual architectures of the future for the simple convenience of querying the fragments of the past? Thanks for tuning in.